So for the second part of this tutorial, we're going to be talking about how to create a GitHub repository, how to configure Go and get it to compile, and how to generally commit and do versioning with your different Go applications and various code pieces. So at this point, it's assumed that you've already downloaded Go from golang.org, and inside of the installation, it's also going to be expected that you have configured your Go directory, which to do so, I personally use the documents directory, either in Windows or Linux or OS X, and then I use a code subdirectory, a Go subdirectory, and it will automatically create a source directory for you. But if not, you can create it on your own, a source directory, and you'll notice all of my GitHubs actually check out here. In my case, I'm Zachary, so that's where this is. And I'm actually going to be recreating a repository called GoSample. Unfortunately, I have some remnants of it since I had a bad recording. So that's gone. And let's go ahead and get started. So the first step that you have to do whenever you install Go is set the Go path. In my case, I actually use I configure the Go path to be to code Go. In your case, you'll have to tweak it. If you need help with that, there's instructions on here. I will also go over it a little bit more in a second. But assuming that's all configured, or even if it's not, you can continue. Inside GitHub, once you have an account, you can create a new repository. And once you do, it's going to ask you what location you want it to go to, which in my case, I want it to be Zachary. And you can give the repository a name. In this case, I'm going to use GoSample. You can put a description optionally. Public or private. In this case, might as well go public since private does cost money if you don't have an account. It's $7 a month for unlimited private repositories, which isn't too shabby. Go ahead and initialize with a README. This doesn't necessarily matter, but you can create a license. It's a good habit. They're all pre-generated anyways. And for gitignore, I recommend Go. Again, all of this is editable later. It's not a huge deal, but that's what I recommend. So once you hit create repository, you'll notice that the URL on the top is github.com/your username/GoSample. And if you click on this green button over here, you can actually clone or download the sample or the repository. So this is the URL you want to copy. There's two ways you can do it, through HTTPS or SSH. For the time being, use HTTPS. There are advantages to SSH, but we won't go into that for now. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that there's two different types of URLs. So with the HTTPS URL copied, it's going to be assumed that you've already created and logged into the source tree system. By that, I mean you typically have to have a Bitbucket or Atlassian account. That's free. It's pretty straightforward, and you can do it through the installation of SourceTree. Another thing is during its configuration, you're going to be asked to create an account or log in through GitHub. It's using OAuth and HTTPS. And I recommend doing this just so you don't constantly get asked to log in every time you do anything. You can also set your default user information and the default project folder. And you'll notice in my case, I'm using my code Go subdirectory, and then inside source, github.com. And because I typically create repositories, I have my username there. And with that all configured, we now can go to new and clone from URL. And we can paste in the URL that was created with our new repository. And the moment we click on another field, you'll notice it auto-populates the directory as I like it, including a subfolder called GoSample that it will create. And the name of the project will be the same as the repository name, which is GoSample. So I've go ahead and clone. It's going to pull down the files and pop up this new window, which will default to file status and tell you there's nothing to commit. If you hit show in Finder, it's going to go right back to the directory view of what we saw earlier. And we can go to Visual Studio Code and create a new window if you already have anything else open, and you should see a screen just like this. And all you need to do now is drag drop the GoSample directory onto this window, And you'll notice on the left, all the files will appear on the left. And we can go ahead and close the welcome and hit File, Save Workspace As, and go ahead and save this workspace. I personally use a Documents, Code, Projects directory, and I do actually have one called GoSample already, but I'm going to overwrite it since it was from a previous run. So if I go ahead and hit Save, we can replace, and now you'll notice that it says GoSample Workspace. So with this, you now have a workspace that you can open later with all of your configured stuff inside of it. So since we're going to be working with Go, we're going to go ahead and create a new file. We'll just call it main.go. And inside of main.go, we're going to make the default package name, which is main. All of this can be taught to you during the tutorials and other types of information out there. So I won't go into a lot of details about what exactly is going on just yet. I just want to test if everything's working. So to do that, we need to import format, and we also need to make a new function called main, and in swiggly brackets, do a print line and just say hello world. And when you save, it'll auto format everything. And if you do get any prompts during this process that you don't have Go installed or other type of things, go ahead and just hit install. It's not a big deal. You can't really mess it up because you can uninstall it later. But the point is that you're just going to see if you can get Go to run. So now that we have this going, if you go to View, you can go to Integrated Terminal, and this will pop up this bottom area, and it'll open up a terminal in the directory of where your project's at. So if I type ls, you can see that it's the same files as are over here. You could, if you're in a Windows environment, you would type dir and get the same results, and this would also say command line. So now that we have a main file and a terminal, we can just go ahead and type in go run main.go. And because I have everything configured, you'll notice it just simply says hello world. If I echo out go path, you'll notice that I've configured my go path to reflect the same as what this directory shows. And if you don't have a go path set, this go run is probably going to show you errors. If it doesn't show you errors, you still may have some configuration issues. And as far as going through and troubleshooting that, I'll do that on another video. So another thing I'd recommend doing just to fully verify that your Go environment's configured and everything's happy is create a new folder. And we're just going to call this foo. And this foo folder is going to represent what's called a package. So inside of the foo folder, we're going to create a file that's called foo.go. So this new package of foo is going to simply have a function in it that is going to be called hello and returns a string, and we're going to return hello world. And you'll notice that there's this green underline, which is telling us that it doesn't have a comment. So because this package is exposed, that's what the uppercase function name is doing. We're going to say hello returns hello world as a string. Very simple. We're just sort of getting things going. So now that we've created this new package, we can go back to main and we can import this package. To import it, we have to actually use a full URL from where source was. So in this case, it's Zachary GoSample foo. And it's actually auto-suggesting it as I type. And if I save, you'll notice it goes away. So if I undo, it comes back. And the reason it goes away is that the Go IntelliSense system inside of VS Code decides that if you have an import and you're not using it, it should go away. So let's go ahead and utilize it. To do that, we can go ahead and inside the print line, instead of having the string, we can type foo dot, and you'll notice it says hello. And the moment I put it as a bracket, it gives me that little comment description that I had. And it's simply going to return a string called hello world. So now if I save, it keeps the package import. And if we run again, it says hello world. So this whole scenario won't work if your Go path isn't set. And the reason is that this import, while it might seem apparent that it's a subdirectory, is an absolute path. It's typically highly recommended to create what's called absolute paths, meaning that the reference is coming from Go source, and then this is the path of what exactly needs to be imported. So just good practice. But if you can get to this point, you have an environment ready, at least in the Go, VS Code, and repository setup. And one last thing we're going to do is actually commit these changes. So if we go to main, you'll notice that my view may be different than yours. And if it is, be sure to change. There's a little, hamburger icon up here. Click it and type and check the split view staging. It's my personal preference. You don't have to do it. I just like it. And what this does is there's a staged environment. This is stuff that's about to get pushed. And this is the unstaged environment, meaning stuff that isn't yet ready to be committed. In our case, we only have 2 files that we've added. If we go and hit the check marks, they instantly go up to the top, and they have these green plus signs that imply that they're new files being added. And now if we go to the very bottom, there's a commit message, and we're going to say added main, or how about added hello world sample. Okay. And if we hit commit, that's going to stage the files and prepare them to be pushed. You'll see this little up arrow with the number 1 here, and also the push up arrow. That means you have pending commits. And if we come in here just to kind of show you, we could do this and save. And what that'll do is you'll notice all of those changes I just did are versioned here, red meaning removed, green meaning added. And this is just useful for versioning and knowing that I've snapshotted the stage. And obviously this was all erroneous. I don't want to keep this. So if I right click, I can hit reset, and it will revert back to what the commit was before I, since the last time I committed. So at this point, I can go ahead and hit push, and this screen should automatically be configured, but essentially you're wanting to push from the local branch, which is master, it's the only branch we're messing with, to the remote branch, which in this case is seen up here in this URL, and we're pushing to its master branch, which is correct. Track should be checked. This is all default, so if I hit OK, wait a moment as it's pushing. Now it's on the website, and it's on the Git repo. So if we go back to the browser, we can see here there was 1 commit, and if I refresh, now there's 2 commits. And you can see the commit summary here. You can also see the new files added. So if we go to main, you can see the code that I just committed. And also if we go here, you can see the 2 commits. The initial one was simply pushed by GitHub when they first created the repo. But you can see the files here with all the green lines representing what was added. So with that, you can now commit. You now have verified your Go environment, and in general, you should be ready for the next steps.